With almost a quarter of the United States now fully vaccinated, there remain many questions about the COVID vaccines and the rise in cases in some states like Michigan. Earlier this morning, I had a chance to speak to Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and chief medical advisor to President Biden. Have a listen. Dr. Fauci, thanks very much for coming to the Sunday Show.
My pleasure, Jonathan. Good to be with you.
Now, let's talk vaccines and start with Johnson & Johnson. The pharmaceutical company paused, or I should say the CDC put a pause on administration of the vaccine. When will that pause end?
Well, I would imagine that by this coming Friday, we will know one way or the other where we're going with that. I would imagine that we're not going to see any further extension. They're looking very carefully over this coming week and over the previous few days. And we hope that by Friday we'll get some sort of determination of what we're going to do with the J&J vaccine.
And does the pause say anything about the efficacy of the vaccine? Should people be worried?
Not at all. This has absolutely nothing to do with efficacy. This vaccine is a highly efficacious vaccine, which was the reason that the FDA gave it the emergency use authorization. We're looking now at a very rare, an exceedingly rare complication or adverse event. We have identified 6 women out of close to 7 million people who are vaccinated. The time that's being taken now is to examine, learning a bit more about it and seeing if there are any additional cases. That's the reason why the CDC right now and the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices is looking at this and trying to determine exactly what the scope of it is. And that's the reason why by Friday, Jonathan, I think we'll have a determination.
All right, now let's turn our attention to Pfizer. Last week, the Pfizer CEO announced that there might be a need for a third booster shot within 12 months. One, is that booster to be expected? And 2, should we start thinking of the COVID-19 vaccine in the same way that we now think of the flu vaccine, something that we'll have to get every year?
Yeah. Well, we don't know for sure, but that certainly is conceivable. When you look at a vaccine, you look at the durability of the response, and you could do that either by looking at what we call correlates of immunity, for example, antibody level. So if the antibody level is up here and then you start to see it trickle down, then that's a pretty good indication that you might have to give a boost. The other indicator would be if you're starting to see breakthrough infections. Namely, after several months, more and more people start breaking through who were vaccinated. That being the case, you may have to get a booster. That will be determined purely on a public health basis. And the second part of your question is quite relevant. If, in fact, it turns out that we have durability that's only measured in a year or so, it is quite conceivable that we may need to come back with regular boosters. We don't know that yet, but that certainly is something that you have to consider.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.